Hello everybody and welcome to IMAGI-NATION TV, to our university specials as we work through IMAGI-NATION University, the launch of this idea, and then gathering with all of these people around the world as we look to try and organise change and build the fairer world that we want to see. Now, I've been thinking a lot about what changing the world sort of looks like. We've done 16 years now with AIM of working on trying to provide a stage for kids to come out of inequality, for people with privilege to have a purpose, to give their time and their knowledge and not necessarily money, but to work out how we can build more of a stronger bond between people who come from different backgrounds, from different economic fields, from different nations, from different cultures. And one of the things I think that everybody should pursue who's trying to create change is to leave behind a set of tools. I think that is at the heart of mentoring. And if AIM in 5 years' time has done this university and there's hundreds of thousands of people that enrolled, then that's fantastic. And hopefully we've created change for millions of people around the world. If 50 people enroll and they create change for 500 people, and that's fantastic as well. And tell you what, if no one enrolls and we leave behind a set of tools, and 100 years from now, someone's searching on Google, working out how to create change, and they're trying to look for a roadmap, and they stumble across this heartbeat of a website, then that's okay too, because the responsibility of people who are seeking knowledge and trying to do that for the betterment of us all is to leave behind a set of tools. And we all often study history in school. We go back in time, sometimes 50 years, 100 years, sometimes thousands of years. We go back in time to study history, to study paintings, to study texts. And if we haven't written it down, if we haven't painted it, if we haven't told it as a story, then often we will lose that knowledge. And so we're very much in this for the long game, and hopefully trying to chase the pursuit of imagination, mentoring, how to flip the script, how to build bridges, exploring what different economic models look like, and fundamentally how to organize change. And that's at the heart of our work. And so there will be no failure, because we have failure as a principle in what we do. And if this thing doesn't light up, then we know that one day somewhere someone will find the tools. But we're also lucky that on the other side, quite a few people are interested in it. So we're going to meet some of them today, and people that are interested in enrolling in IMAGI-NATION University and getting to work. We'll throw to a quick launch film that we pulled together to help explain the concept and the work behind IMAGI-NATION University.
We know what happened in 2020. So let's imagine 2021.
Let's imagine
what a free and just world looks like. Let's imagine
a university free for all,
with no paywalls to higher order thinking for anyone, anywhere.
Let's imagine
a social network for good.
A bridge for us to come together and redesign the way the world works.
Let's imagine what happens when we tell the kids at the back of the class,
we see you.
Believe me, there is a generation of kids just like you.
Let's imagine school students, university students,
Teachers, executives, citizens.
coming together to work on a curriculum designed for a future that we hope to build. Now, imagine.
It's happening right here. And you're invited.
Welcome to Imagination University, brought to you by AIM, the Imagination Factory.
Applications are open now.
Jake, thank you for joining us on the show today. Stoked to hear a bit about your story. I'd love to know a little bit of your background and your connection to AIM and what's made you interested in enrolling in Imagination University.
Well, I started off with AIM at school. You would come into my school. I was part of the Indigenous program, and we went to university, I think once a week, University of Wollongong, and you were teaching us just a lot of life lessons, life skills. And you done this AIM Got Talent, and because I love music, I performed and I got selected to record the AIM anthem. I believe it was 2016, and one kid from every state came, and it was amazing. We had the time of our lives. We all shared stories, just shared our experiences, totally different lifestyles. And it just made me understand that like there is a lot of different people in this world, a lot. And my lifestyle, like I live in I wouldn't say bad, but like not ideal. Like my dad doesn't have the right mindset. He just wants to relax, chill. Like I want to accomplish stuff, and it kind of angers me, but I shouldn't get angry because that's just my dad. That's how he was raised. So I got to understand that I'm different. Yeah, that's a bit about me. I'm a musician, a chef, and I just got into fighting. I train at Southern MMA, and they're my passions.
Awesome, Jake. Yeah, it's finding that awareness and forgiveness and understanding for generations that have come before us, and being able to take that fire inside of you and channel it into action and hopefully action that does good stuff is like, that's huge, when you can start to channel that. And I remember you and some of the young people who performed in 2016 at Gala Ball in Sydney, that was a moment that we stood up and said, hey, we think we can change the world. We'd worked in Australia before and worked on this idea of trying to imagine a world where we can come together. And it was really powerful to stand with you all as you had a voice to go, yeah, let's go for it. Because often part of the paradigm we're trying to push here is in Australia, Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people are accepted up to a certain point. Really good athletes, you're really guys are amazing athletes, really good artists, and you can be really smart at being Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander, but that's sort of like your frame and your box. And I'm interested in smashing that. I would like to see Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people be able to be geniuses in any field, anywhere around the world, anytime. And when we stood together on that stage, I grew up really proud of my Aboriginality. My mum's Aboriginal. My grandfather went and fought in World War II for Australia and came back and wasn't a citizen and faced apartheid in Tenterfield in a country town in New South Wales. Now, when we stood up together, we said bravely, hey, we think we can build a new paradigm and a new bridge together. And Viv, when we walked down to Alexandria Park as 19-year-old university students, that was a small jump, but a pretty big one. You're growing up in a reasonably privileged background in Balmain. A lot of the mentors had a pretty privileged background, and Alex Park was seen as the other side of the tracks. And to walk down there took a bit of bravery. What gave you the confidence, I suppose, the courage to actually do it and to put your hand up and to face rejection and to want to go over and see if you could build that bond?
Yeah. Hello, everyone. What gave me the courage? That's a great question. I think for me, I'd had such a lucky and positive high school experience, and to be able to go back into a high school and potentially give of myself, which is something that I hadn't done a lot of up until that point in my life, was probably the challenge and opportunity for me at that point in time. And to have fun along the way. I think sort of from the get-go, there was a fair bit of fun and play and laughter and imagination in the AIM DNA from those early days.
And Gilbert on the show yesterday, as we did our African special, said the word fun. And, we can dismiss fun and we can dismiss, I wrote a note to our team yesterday saying the next 3 years are going to be fun and critical. I think you can be both. And Lily, when you've done your work and got into the world of wanting to see things change, have you been able to maintain a level of play, fun, enjoyment in that process? And if so, how have you done it? And tell us a little bit about yourself. There's a barrage of questions for you.
Sure, no problem. Let me start with a couple of them. My name is Lily, and I have a YouTube channel called Lily College Mythbusters. And the reason why I made the YouTube channel was because I was out of work. I got unemployed, and I felt like I was spinning my wheels. I had gone to college and university, and I had done everything I thought I was supposed to do. In high school, in secondary school, I'm from the United States, obviously. In high school, I was sort of like a troublemaker. I was always like getting in trouble, skipping school, dropping out, barely graduating high school. And I went to a community college, which is a 2-year technical college. And I started getting A's for the first time because I was doing really well and loving my instructors because they actually cared about me and listened to me. And so I really started doing well in university, and I transferred from the community college to UC Berkeley, which is a prestigious, public university. And I got my bachelor's degree. Then I went to Columbia University in New York City at an Ivy League school. I got a master's degree, and then I got my doctorate degree at a university where I could study exactly what I wanted to. But then I lost my job and I got unemployed. And I was sitting there trying to figure out what was going to be my next step, because I had thought if you got a university degree, that was all you needed to be successful. And I was unemployed for 4 years, and I was literally driving for Lyft. I was driving a taxi, and I didn't know what I could do with myself. And so I created my Mythbusters YouTube channel because I was like, what's the point of this knowledge and information if you can't help somebody? And my son, who was 14 at the time, would watch YouTube channels all the time. And that's all he watched. And there's several different people making these videos about how college doesn't matter. What's the point? You go into college debt and you just waste time and you party, you get drunk and you forget everything. And so I wanted to fight that paradigm of this idea that higher education is only for certain people. But while I was unemployed, they made me go to this job class, and it was to teach you how to find a job. And they made you do a vision board, and they made you talk about your life. And they said, what are you doing right now to better your life? And I was sort of like, well, I have fun with my son. I'm making my YouTube channel. I was working on a book that I was writing, and I'm looking for work, and I was driving for Lyft. And so I was meeting people from all over the world. And I said, even though I don't have a job and I'm poor, I'm actually having a lot of fun. And they were like, who the hell are you? And they were like, what kind of perspective do you have? Because you're poor, you're on public assistance. And I said, yeah, but if you don't have fun and you don't see yourself as capable, you're never going to get out of the situation. And so what you said really strikes a chord for me. And I always want people to think it's never too late to get back on the right path. It's never too late to turn a new leaf. And that's something that having a YouTube channel can help people see, is that if you come across it in 5 years or 10 years, it's still information that's relevant. And I think that when people have knowledge, you're excavating new knowledge, but you have to apply it to somewhere. And that's what I was excited about hearing about your AIM story.
Yeah, we were chatting yesterday to a young woman named Caroline in South Africa, who's done some worked as an organizer with us for a year at a university campus, or for a year or two. And Caroline said, look, I think in life you need to have, we asked what were the ingredients to create a cake called hope. And Caroline spoke about imagination and bravery and kindness, and then said a little bit of money. And I think sometimes, we get a little bit lost with money, and we forget a number of really critical values that can make us feel good. And yeah, that knowledge exchange and that joy, it's really incredible, Lily, to think of the, there's every opportunity for you in that moment when you're unemployed to go, stuff you, college, like you delivered a lie. And taking that ability to flip the script, which is so challenging for so many of the kids we work with worldwide, is the only way for us to see significant shift out of inequality. Is fundamentally going to come down to these kids working out how to claw their way out, how to game their way out, how to imagine their way out, how to work their way out. And they're going to have to be 10 times better than the person who's privileged, because that's the way the cards have been laid. But there is a way, and if we get through in one generation, it can be better the generation after, and we can start to claw it back and make it more even. And Jake, I'm interested, as you're sort of lining up at the start of your journey, thinking about wanting to create change. Where do you start? Have you thought about that, like how you help people? Like, have you asked yourself that question at all?
Yes, I usually ask myself that at least once a day because that's what I feel I want to do in life, help people. And I'm a musician, so I know I'm going to help with my music one way or another. Like I'm recording my own album, but like what specifically how I'd like to help people.
Yeah, or just asking the question, I suppose, is a big start, isn't it? How old are you now?
19, and I just recently, well, yesterday got fired from my job. I tried to hand in my formal resignation and my boss just said, get out. But I'm still very happy because I really wanted to leave, but I have no job now.
Yeah. Yeah. And big moments to now work out, okay, this is the current hand. I've got to play with what I got and I've got to try and make it work. And I think that's what we're hoping to give a stage for, you know, if you're working as a citizen, Jake, and you go, I want to help these people in this way, and create a project, or you enter and go, I'm not sure what the project is going to be yet, but you can work it up over time. We're going to try and build a network around you of people that will go, absolutely, Jake. And hey, here's someone that might be able to offer you some employment along the way to support with that. Or here's someone that can help with a grant, or a way that we can look at that little bit of money. But then in parallel, like I've watched people who have dedicated their whole life to serving other people, and my God, they're happy, so happy and so satisfied. And then I've seen people in like Manhattan at the height of the advertising world making $15 million a year. And they are some of the least happy people I've ever come across. And you can feel in their energy and their soul. And I think, Viv, as we try and wrestle with, what is the everyday punter think about trying to create change? I think, part of the narrative of what's evolved and become so clear as we observe the United States election and some of the popular elections is this idea that there's everyday people, and then there's people who think and care about, a broader village, and there's the individual, and then there's the collective, and there's these extreme left-wing ideologies, and then there's these extreme right-wing ideologies, which are about me, me, me. Now, I would say, knowing you pretty well, like we've played soccer together when we were 5 years old, and we're knowing each other reasonably well over that time, I would say you are close to the average punter. It's sort of in the middle, thoughtful, but I wouldn't say you going through school, you weren't, I'm going to be a person who changes the world, or I'm going to be a person who dedicates my life to other people. Now, you've spent 15 years of your life, give or take, working to help other people have better lives. Is it as simple as just making one decision to cross the road to that school? Is it as simple as actually just trying to be open to one new experience, and then suddenly that door can open yourself up to a whole new universe?
Yeah, look, if and when I write my autobiography, that's a pivotal moment. Not getting into a law degree would probably be the other one. Not to slander the pursuit of law in any sense, but that was sort of all I wanted to be as a kid. That was held up in my eyes to be the sort of pinnacle of educational attainment, if you will. And my perspective since then has changed dramatically. And you're right. Yeah, the last 15 years I've worked for not-for-profits and done my best to sort of dedicate my energy towards helping others. And I think sort of in my current mode, something that I was thinking about just listening to you then is I just try to keep a really open mind. Like I've always been an advocate of lifelong learning. I'm very young at heart, and I think that sort of dichotomy between having a closed mind and an open mind can really be the difference between enjoying life and sort of seeing opportunities versus denying opportunities and being quite fixed and rigid.
Yeah, and being afraid can make us feel very closed. And if there ever was a set of circumstances that could contribute to us feeling a little bit afraid, there's a few of them moving on at the moment. And I think, Jake, for your generation, particularly in Australia specifically, we'll be looking at, maybe 5 years of significant youth unemployment at a bigger scale that we've ever seen. And so if that's the pathway, then there's a question of what do we do with our time? What do young people do with your time? And I think volunteering, acquiring knowledge, being able to, like, no one can stop you reading a book. No one can stop you looking at Lily's YouTube channel. No one can stop you from acquiring that knowledge and being valuable as a citizen. And maybe what we're moving towards is a slightly different economic model where perhaps the government is supporting and people who have, have made successful businesses which make quite a lot of money during this time are supporting our citizens to be able to acquire knowledge, to serve each other and to build those bridges. So I really encourage you, Jake, to keep following that question of how do I help people, and to keep pushing to acquire knowledge. And if you can get out there and do things like you're doing, whether it's with your music or just be brave and connect with an old school, or connect with, think about your project being a bridge that takes you to somewhere you haven't been before. I'm sure, Lily, you experienced that, driving Lyft, just having these constant bridge building moments to, oh, here's another part of the world.
Yeah, definitely. I think one of the things I was learning about myself was that my formal education actually wasn't what was helping me find fun and meaning and satisfaction in life, but really it was using the tools that I had learned along the way. And like Jake, you were saying that you just got laid off. I got laid off like a month ago, so I'm technically out of work right now too. And it's a really tough situation because we're trying to make our life, but at the same time, we want to do something that's meaningful. And I think right now, my goal is to help people realize that a formal education isn't going to open the door or close the door. It's really what we bring to the table. And I think, especially in the United States, we keep on thinking, well, if I had a college degree, or oh, if I had gone to this school versus that school, that would make all the difference. And I'm like a living testament to say that those aren't the schools that are going to help you get far in life unless you've brought your own abilities with you. And I think that's one of the things that I would like us as a world to think about, is that we have everything we need to be successful the moment we're born. And we just need to tap into that. And genius can come from any neighborhood, any community, but we have to open the doors for people who are willing to do the work. And I think right now everyone is feeling itchy to do the work because we're so locked up and kept away from each other, that I think there's this energy, this spirit of buildup of people willing to just do whatever it takes to fix things. And I think that's what you're coming across right now, is this anticipation that it's time to fix this world.
Yeah, absolutely. And we can do that. One of my favorite problem solving activities is, okay, we've got no money, we've got no resources, now let's create something. And I think being able to do it without money, you can really, money can often limit invention because you lose all of your creative capacities and opportunities. Lily, Jake, Viv, I could chat to you forever. We've got some other people who are going to drop into the show, but thanks so much for dropping in, and really excited to see what we might be able to do together with Imagination University and what it could provide as a network and a frame for the work that you guys are doing. I just think, the tutorial groups are going to be like the three of you gathering with a couple of other people and connecting with people all around the world and working on our projects and pushing each other to be the best versions of ourselves. So thank you all for dropping in.
Thank you.
All good, man. All good. We're gonna we've got a couple of people on the other side, and we're going to now just go back in time for those of you that don't know AIM. So we have been around for about 16 years now, and been working pretty hard on trying to engineer a new world and build pathways for people to come together. So this is a short film that we made a couple of years ago, or last year, geez, it feels like about 7 years ago, just to talk a little bit about the story of AIM when we created a festival of mentoring and brought some people together. So this will give you a bit of a sense that we are a little bit legit and have done some work to get to this point before launching a university. So check it out, and we'll see you on the other side. Opportunities are there, and we're just there to help you.
$50 and you have to wear your budgie smugglers.
National Hoodie Day is a chance to look good and do good.
next year we're going to run a global campaign to give away 20 golden tickets to 20 university students from 20 different countries to win a one-off scholarship for 3 years to see if they can take our model and rip a generation of powerless people out of inequality. Not only are we going to nail this back home, but we're going to turn our eyes to every kid that's been left behind and see if we can build a better, fairer world for us all. That starts tonight. Get ready for the next 10 years. You ain't seen nothing yet.
You. Sitting in the back row with the fire inside, we see you. You who has fought for everything, we see you. You who knows what it is to rebel, we see you. There is a generation of kids, just like you, waiting for you to see them. So if not you, then who? If not now, then when?
Becky, good to have you on Imagination TV. Stoked to catch up with you today. I'd love you to share just a little bit with the audience what you've been doing with your life and what sort of piqued your interest in Imagination University and what you're thinking about getting involved with.
Yeah, cool. Thanks, Jack. Thanks for having me on. Yeah, my name's Beck, guys. I guess I like to say my little claim to fame is that I'm an Olympian. I competed at the London 2012 Olympics in the 20-kilometre race walk, and still training to hopefully get to Tokyo next year, but currently work for AIM and absolutely loving what it brings and what it's taught me as an individual. And I heard this quote the other day actually that says we don't inherit the earth from our ancestors, we borrow it from our children. And I think that just completely changed my mindset and just is what Imagination University is really. So super keen to be a part of it and can't get ready to get started.
Yeah, the borrow from our children is so powerful. A friend of mine once interviewed Ray Charles, and Ray said, none of us own the notes. We're just lucky enough to hold them for a little while before we pass them on. And Daisy, that's part of what you're spending a lot of your life working on so far is trying to bring that awareness to and that bridge and that empathy to the reality that this generation of young people will be inheriting what is left behind. And as has always happened with humanity throughout all of our eons of being on this earth, there's a particular pointy tip to this moment, which we're trying to work out how we can create that change together. Tell us a little bit about what your landscape is at the moment and what you're sort of thinking about and what's sort of interesting you with Imagination University.
Yeah, for sure. So I'm a climate activist. I first got involved with the youth climate movement around the first strike in Sydney in November 2018. And I've been fighting for climate justice ever since. And just for any of you who don't know, there's a bit of a difference between, climate action and climate justice. I think climate action frames, climate change or taking action to address it as more of a scientific, economic concept, whereas climate justice actually looks at the social repercussions of climate change and of colonialism. And it's been a real learning curve for me over this, nearly 2 years now. And I got involved because I felt like I had no other choice. And it was one of those, if not me, then who? If not now, then when? And honestly, it's been one of the, it's sort of a double-edged sword. It's been, on one hand, the most amazing experience of my life, but also gives you this greater awareness of everything, of everything we're facing. And luckily, I had the time as someone who lives in the city and who has privilege, had the time and the energy to devote to the climate movement. And so that's basically what I'm doing at the moment. Is I have to step back from School Strike for Climate, which I used to primarily work within, because I'm heading to university. So I'll be working with uni students, but I'm also working for a couple of foundations and working on a couple of pretty big initiatives leading up to the next big UN climate conference at the end of next year. That's sort of what I'm driving towards at the moment. And it's also been like during this pandemic, it's been for activists around the world. None of us have ever really experienced anything like this, or, the vast majority of us. And so it's been a real learning curve as to how we organize and show, demonstrate public support for something through, an avenue other than actually getting people out into the street, because we can't do that anymore. And so that's again been another learning curve to get through this year. But yeah, so that's what I'm doing at the moment.
Yeah, awesome.
Oh, and yeah, why I enrolled was because I want to help make a difference, and I want to listen to other people's ideas, because people often don't realize that their life experience is extraordinary and that they have something incredible and crucial to add to the conversation. And you never know how much of a difference you can make until you start trying. And so that's what I'm, really excited to see.
Yeah, cool, Daisy. Yeah, I think, it's weird when you start to be older, like I'm 35 now. And so watching all of the students, yourself included, around the world sort of drive as the next gen on this stuff. Part of what I've kind of thought might be helpful is we've learned a bunch of things on how to scale organizing change over a 16-year period as a case study. And if we can facilitate a bunch of people that are doing different models of organizing change in a network and an environment, which is somewhere in that bridge between some of the significant corporate power players, between some of the significant government leaders, between some of the people that are sometimes maybe would be seen on an other side, whatever the other side might be, to progress and facilitate a grey space for conversation. I think that's one thing I'm really interested in as an experiment. And the other one is we've just learned so much watching the different way people go out and apply change. We've got our gang who are working on the ground in the continent of Africa, in Zimbabwe, Uganda, Nigeria, and South Africa. And they've all had phenomenal challenges this year, food shortage, crises and shortages. Vitali in South Africa, when he first started AIM there at the University of Venda, they had these strikes going on for 2 months with the students, the army, and the university. So the army was blockading the front of the university. And Vitali sent a note to our team with a photo saying, hey, I just walked into the middle with my hands up, like with machine guns all there, and said, can I chat to the boss of the army? And then he got the head of the university, the head of the student strike, and the head of the army to come together. And he said, could we let this group of school kids come through on the bus? And he shared that on Slack to our team. And, we've got staff that we're paid reasonably well, especially compared to what, salaries look like sometimes in the continent of Africa. And I know the challenges might be like, oh, the contact teacher doesn't return my phone call and their school's 5 minutes down the road. And I go, oh, this guy's just walked through an army, a literal army. I reckon we can kind of learn a little bit about what's possible with organising change. Hey, Chris, you're coming from the boardroom broadly to Imagination University and are interested in sort of levelling the playing field and working with entrepreneurs. I've thought, fascinating link already directly with Daisy and potentially other people around the world. What's sort of driving you to want to try and see progress or do something good with your time and energy and pass on your knowledge?
Yeah, definitely. Thanks, Jack. I've been fortunate enough over the last sort of, I think, kind of 6 months to be kind of, a member of the AIM board, which has been really inspiring. And prior to that, I sort of, most of my career has been in entrepreneurial pursuits. So, I started a company called Pedestrian.tv here in Australia, which is a, kind of Australia's largest youth media focused, kind of publishing company. So, we were sort of speaking to kind of, millions of young Australians every kind of month, and, covering everything from, sort of the high and the low of kind of, popular culture, and, kind of everything from reality television to kind of, massive social causes, and, kind of, everything from like climate to, marriage equality, and just general sort of, diversity and inclusiveness, across all facets of society. And I think, kind of one of those areas, Jack, that you sort of highlighted there, where I do think that there's a lot of kind of where it's, there's sort of like, there is almost like still a bit of a glass ceiling is in that kind of entrepreneurial world. I think, kind of this sort of, people love that sort of story of, kind of the entrepreneur that comes from nothing and then, creates, kind of a massive success story. But, definitely the thing that I think I've seen over kind of, hanging out with lots of entrepreneurs and, spending time, kind of in those communities is that typically, one thing that a lot of them have in common is that they have come from, like privilege and, kind of, and not taking away anything that they've achieved because of that. But, definitely when you start to look at kind of AIM University and, leveling the playing field, that's something that I'm, kind of really, really passionate about. I think that, kind of entrepreneurship can be such a strong vehicle to make change. Kind of, you don't necessarily have to kind of, follow rules. You can kind of, imagine the world how you want to see it. But, kind of fundamentally, if there's a whole group of people that, kind of it's not necessarily out of their reach, but that they're much less likely to succeed just because, as you sort of said in your previous segment, Jack, like, maybe they just didn't have that little bit of money that, then helps to kind of, kind of get them started. And it's not just about money, it's also about access to networks and access to, potentially people who can,
and
kind of open those doors.
Second chances and third chances and fourth chances, with often people coming out of privileged backgrounds have an uncle who's a lawyer if they get in trouble, or they have a little bit of money in the bank if they've got some fines to pay, and different challenges that can kind of build up over time as well. So I think providing space for us exploring what a different sort of economic model kind of looks like. And Daisy, it's exhausting, like working on changing people. Every single day you get up and you're basically an irritant, like you're choosing a position which is, I'm going to ask you in all different ways to change from who you are right now to something different tomorrow. And that's for everybody. How have you been able to wear that energy of going into a space where you're constantly trying to ask people to change their behavior, and to maintain hope in that process?
Yeah, I haven't been dealing with it very well. Certainly not when I I often get, like, when I tell people about this, they go, "Oh, you're only 17. You can't, expect yourself to know these things yet." Or I'm 18 now. Forgot that. Look, it's not. You have to sort of figure out a way of keeping yourself sane. So you're going into conversations often with individuals who've decided that they're going to be the one who teaches you all about how you're going to be conservative by the time you're 43 and you just don't understand what's going on right now. And I often find that the most effective method that's also the least taxing for, on your mental health is to listen, and to ask questions. Because the more you ask questions, the more someone's likely to consider their own argument and, where the faults may lie. And admittedly, like, I don't do that all the time. Sometimes you get really riled up and you go, how do you think this works? But, and then, because of course you have like that, on an individual scale, and then you have it on a mass scale where you're trying to convince tens of thousands of people, potentially over social media now, to change their mind or to come with you. And so it's, I think it's really like it's really about understanding where the other person is coming from, because you're best placed to talk to them and empathize with what they might be going through mentally and the kind of hoops that they're jumping through to get to their own conclusion, and how you can bring them on board.
That's hard because it's urgent, right? Like I always felt like this urgent patience tension of kind of going, no, we've got to change things now, because if we miss this generation, then that's another generation of systemic inequality. And like, I don't know how many generations we can have this repeat before it's just impossible to have any hope left and any change left. And so you're doing that whilst at the same time sitting in a boardroom with someone who's politely chewing burger rings in Manhattan in your face and telling you what you should be doing when they've never done anything before in their life, and you try and listen. And I think that's really delicate and really hard, because for significant change, we have to cultivate a space, I think, to try and work together with people who and take time to understand ideas. And then there's urgency, which is a really challenging tension point to bring together. Becky, how have you wrestled with, wanting to, as you've been doing some organizing stuff with us, and then just throughout your life athletically, how have you worked with that pressure and urgency? Like, when you're an athlete, you want to win yesterday, again and again and again. You want to win now. You want to be competing now. You've got a limited body clock. The Olympics only swing around every 4 years. How do you balance the pressure of outcome, desire for it to happen yesterday, with sometimes being able to give yourself a break and go a little bit slower?
Yeah, I think, like Daisy said, it's just about listening to yourself and to your own mental capacity, as well as physically with your body and how much it can take. But, I think one thing that being an athlete has taught me is to never give up, and you fail more than you succeed. And so being able to be comfortable with the uncomfortable is something that I've learned to do just purely by being an athlete. And I'm fortunate enough now that I can take that into, my professional life as well, and especially with something so huge as trying to change the world. Being comfortable with the uncomfortable is a godsend.
Yeah, and I was sketching, sort of trying to write a bunch of tools for the different course areas, which we're teaching: imagination, mentoring, building bridges. So how we kind of come together. And one of the tools we're doing for building bridges is a Let's Get Awkward podcast, and really trying to bring out those case studies of those moments like you're alluding to, Daisy, and then looking at how we flip the script at Hoodie Economics, and then finally how we organize change. So we're sort of sketching this book for 101 lessons in organizing change. And one of the lessons which I wrote down was, just be happily misunderstood. You can't have both. You can't be doing something which you think, which is potentially innovative and potentially new, and then want everyone to understand. So that tension is really difficult to work between. And being comfortable in the uncomfortable. I keep saying this again and again, but I think the speed of light's 299,000 kilometers a second. Change is happening pretty regularly around us. So being able to just move with that with a little bit more flow can maybe help our sanity in the process. And heck, if we get to the end of our lives, Daisy, Beck, Chris, and we've given it a crack and we've given it everything we can, that's all I think can be asked of every citizen, that you've done your best to improve your lot and you've tried to live an ethical and moral life. So thank you all for dropping into the show. I'm really excited about what we're going to do with this interesting group of people from all around the world coming together to see if we can change the planet, not just next year, but well into the future. So thanks, Daisy, thanks, Chris, and thanks, Beck, for dropping in.
Thanks, Jack.
All right, we're going to throw to a film that we made with a French filmmaker named Laurent Witz, who won the Oscar for the Best Animated Short. And we made this film 4 years ago to take aim globally. And this idea really at its essence and its core, which I think we might be getting closer and closer 16 years on to the core of what we are about, which is pretty wacky. It takes 16 years to get to know yourself, and maybe it takes 75 years or longer to get to know yourself as a person. So maybe we're just beginning. And we made Cogs to talk about how we can try and break these seemingly fixed tracks that we might often be on, that say to someone, hey, your life is fixed and this is the way it's always going to be. And this is a film that we made, and we'll be back on the other side with a couple of interesting people to explore Imagination University. Welcome to Imagination TV. Really stoked to have you here. I'd love to know what you're thinking about doing with Imagination University, and give us a little bit of a rundown on your backstory.
Yeah, sure. Thanks for having me. So my backstory is I'm 27 years old and I've been working with AIM for a few years now after, frankly, a pretty demoralizing stint in the corporate world. I joined AIM and kind of just felt like my eyes really opened, and I'm now currently in the sort of final stages of an application into med school next year with the goal to work in Indigenous remote communities. So I've kind of been on a bit of a journey over the last decade. And I think I haven't fully decided what I want to do as a project with Imagination University, but I think what really appeals to me about it is the fact that it's really leaning on each individual's ideas, and it's not saying, hey, we have all the answers. It's saying, hey, why don't you come and tell us what you think? Why don't you come and provide a solution, and we'll support you, and we'll bring a network in around you, and we'll give you the tools. But really trusting in each individual to bring their own skills and experience. So hopefully, if I'm in med school next year, I'd like to be doing something around Indigenous health in remote communities. But watch this space.
Yeah, awesome, Ella. I think that that's the heart of the challenge of design. I think, especially when you look to scale, whether it's businesses that are trying to create profit, or you're trying to create profit which is good through the non-profit sector, or through trying to create change more broadly, is finding that intersection of where the design is ready to let it go, and to trust in people's innate capacity to finish it. And I think that's the dance when you create an exchange with people, is you're trying to say, here is a part of something, can you please finish the story? And that's what great storytellers do for us over time. They leave us a little bit of a start of an experience, and then we get to take, whether it's Aristotle's thinking, or we get to take Shakespeare's thinking, or we get to take the work of Kath Walker, is a poet from Australia, and you get to take essences of it and then move it into your own life and what you do. There's a group called IKEA, which I'm sure many people will be familiar with, who I think have cracked the code in that element of design. Here's the tools, put it together yourself. Yes, there'll be legal challenges. Yes, sometimes a cabinet might fall over. Yes, there's got to be a whole lot of structural challenges there. But if you really want to scale things, we can back human intuition and genius. And if we keep designing for people to not have intuition, to not have skill set, to not have intelligence, then we keep boxing human potential, I think, along the way. Hey, I think we've got Martha there. Martha, how are you? Oh, Martha, sorry.
Hi, everybody. I'm well. How you going?
Good to see you. Hey, what sort of piqued your interest with Imagination University? Tell us a little bit about your story.
So I was introduced to the AIM project and the Imagination University by Tom. My name's Marta, popularly known by the name Chili D. I run a radio program with a multicultural community radio station. It's called 4EB, and it's an African radio program where we play African music and talk about the African diaspora. One of the main points that led me to the Imagination Citizenship program, and I do want to be a citizen, was the passion that you guys have for just creating a fair world between those with power and the kids being left behind, as you said. My whole focus with my radio program is to get rid of this word assimilate. I really don't like that word. I really want to encourage people to embrace others' cultures and take what's really great from them and become more colourful. My sort of goal in life is to stop asking why me and start asking why not me, and take ownership of all the beautiful blessings that I've been given. And I believe I can do that through your Imagination Citizenship program.
I think I just sketched a word down instead of assimilate, like a puzzle mate, which is a very Australian-centric way to think about it. But it's really, we're a bunch of puzzle pieces. Don't make the one piece doesn't go into the other piece. That's not how it's meant to work, but they can connect at certain points, and then you can still maintain your integrity as your piece, and you can find ways into other pieces, and you can make a puzzle, mate. Hey, Ella, as you think about, wanting to go out and work as a doctor, and more broadly, what sort of inspired you to want to serve people? What is at the heart of that push for service? And do you think that's natural? Do you think that's just something that all of us have?
Yeah, that's a really interesting question. And it's interesting because if you asked me this question maybe 8 or 9 or 10 years ago, I think my answer would have been very different. I never knew that I wanted to, I pursued a career in business. I didn't really know what I wanted to do. And it wasn't until I did that and realized how just harrowing it was to live a life that was merely an existence that really was taking much more than it was giving. And yeah, I don't think that was something that I innately knew. It was something I had to experience and learn from that experience, that it was just not something that was sustainable for me and not something that was ultimately going to, contribute positively to the world. So for me, it was really a trial and error thing. I'm sure for a lot of people it's not. But yeah, I kind of had to go through the experience to realize, hey, I'm really on the wrong path. And then, obviously I found AIM, and I think that really opened my eyes to this entirely new world of imagination, but more broadly, imagining what's possible within myself and not really limiting myself to, being stuck on this path. You've done this many years in this industry, you've got to stick to this. And so, yeah, it was only in the last probably 2 years that I started thinking about how else I could support the Indigenous community and how I could use my skills and experiences to serve this community. And then from speaking to different people, I just realized that medicine would be such an interesting way to do that. So my path was like this, unlike a lot of people's, who I'm sure is much more straightforward, but we're all different. So
yeah, well, I think that anyone that's on a straightforward path would sketch their ideal path, and they'd be trying to draw the straight line, and there'd definitely be some bends and breaks that'd be coming into it, and they'd be psychologically internally saying, please break and bend. Because we start a life, when you're a parent with a kid, if a kid falls down, you dive to stop that kid's head hitting the ground. You instinctively want to support the life of that child. What I think we may have broken along the way is that sense of connected tissue to every child. And Becky spoke about it before in the former segment, that there is this inheritance that's coming from a generation of people, and that should just be the most absolutely obvious part of our moral code. That just be no-brainer. Number one, okay, born human being, drink water, eat food, breathe air, make sure I make the world better for the next group of kids, look after people younger than me, look after people older than me, learn from them. Next. Marta, there's a collection of thoughts. What do you reckon?
I love that. I've always said I think the worst thing in life is lost potential. You could have a kid who could be the next Usain Bolt, but because he does not have the potential, means, money, family, love to reach that, then that's the worst thing. It's not all the others. It's not being able to reach your full potential, and that really saddens me. And if I could give just the gift of being able to open someone's mind to their full potential, that would be beautiful.
And you spoke earlier about passion. Sorry for cutting you off. Just to run into this thread, like there's when you talk about that kid who could be the Usain Bolt, not necessarily having the money. There's a number of other things you list around that as well, like love and care and support, and those things. We were talking about this yesterday with the African special with a bunch of our friends in the continent of Africa, and also with friends from India, about energy. And now energy doesn't cost anything, so we can, as people that want to see things change, we can definitely go, I don't have money to do that, and that is a genuine roadblock. But you do have time, and you do have a set of behavioral decisions to make around the energy you want to inject into people. And I'd say, over time, like AIM started with energy, and then over time we've learned, and now like I know some stuff, and we've got some good designers and some people who've lived some stuff. You've got 16 years of acquired knowledge, kind of can share some knowledge. And the intent, the central intent is energy, and hopefully positive energy, and being relentlessly positive, because I know that that's a currency that then you guys can pick up and someone else can pick up. And the interesting, fascinating thing about that is no one can control that. They can try through story, you can have different people that can influence you, but fundamentally there is a way that you can train your own engine to be an engine room of energy for people. And I think that can unlock potential more than any dollar.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think that it's all about trying to make sure you give everything a real hot go, and just having no fear. Like a lot of the families that I watch where the children did turn out to be quite successful is that their parents never instilled fear into them. So they were like, yeah, I can't do anything. Like a lot of these schools that a lot of privileged kids go to, they have the mentality that they will be the prime minister. Whereas a lot of the schools that I've seen in Australia, that it's like you're going to be working here or you're going to be working for someone else. But we need to start this mentality where you can be anyone and you can do anything.
Yeah, with a heck of a lot of hard work in between there as well. Ella, I've been lucky to get to know you over the last few years of working together, especially on our campaign to roll AIM around America and doing, gnarly hours, like ballistic amount of time of trying to crack this huge ecosystem, working in Herald Square, in the advertising heart of the world. We couldn't have been building a bigger bridge out to people who, would traditionally not be seen as connected to that core group of people that we're serving and working towards. One of the things that fascinated me with your growth and working was you started and then I was like, all right, Ella, you're kind of like the point person in this whole US campaign. So let's just try and make it work. And you had an adaptability and a resilience in the way that you approach those tasks. And I wonder whether that was because you moved around to a number of different schools as a young person, or there were some different things that helped build to that. Do you think there is a way that we can cultivate when we're bringing people up to have space to learn how to be adaptable, to move in a different environment, so we're not just in that linear path? So as Marta said, like we can say, you can be anything, but then we've got to train the ability to learn how to fail, to learn how to overcome fear, because those things are going to come. So how did you process overcoming fear in that moment of being thrown the ball for this huge global campaign? And how do you think that's been part of having different experiences growing up or otherwise?
Yeah, this is another really interesting point because, I think in that instance, I didn't have a choice. And so much of our biggest learning opportunities are in environments where it's just sink or swim. And more often than not, we swim. That's just human nature. I think most people are resilient. Many of us are sheltered, so we don't necessarily find ourselves in situations that are challenging. And I think most of us probably are averse to change and averse to challenges. But when we're forced into that uncomfortable zone, we generally thrive. So I think avoidance behavior can be really dangerous. And even though we all have a tendency to do it, wherever we can put ourselves into an uncomfortable position, we should. But I think to your point, it's something that AIM talks about a lot. It's this sort of like safe failing. How can we create an environment where we allow people to fail without any sort of serious ramifications? And we're not all, I had a relatively privileged upbringing. I did move around a lot. I think I went to, 5 schools. And I'm sure that had something to do with something, who knows, because it's the only thing I ever experienced. But I think that I was fortunate in that, I had a really loving family that were consistently there for me. I had a twin sister who was by my side the whole way. And so I guess it's impossible to compare my experience to somebody else's, but I think that in my experience, the most important thing was being able to experience struggle and challenges and change in an environment that was loving and safe and would catch me whenever I fell. So wherever we can provide that to kids and adults around the world, we should.
Yeah, which I hope will be the frame of Imagination University. I was saying at the top of the show, like Parul, who runs our education, called me and said, what happens if this thing doesn't work? We're really going pretty hard at this. And what happens if it doesn't work? And there's 5,000 questions back, which are like, what is working with this piece? But I think if we can set a framework for people to unlock that potential that you spoke about and that Marta spoke about, and give space for people to reach, to move into the uncomfortable, have a set of tools, cultivate a network. And then if people want to enroll, awesome, like we'll try and support that space. If people don't want to enroll, at a certain point, the timing might not be right for the idea, but all you can do is provide a bunch of tools, a bunch of knowledge, leave it there. And then maybe in 350 years' time, there's a spaceship that comes back from Mars with a few humans, and they find this old catalogue of all this work that we've done. And when you look back through modern history and ancient history and we study texts, 350 years isn't a very long time to study the human experience. So if we can continue to, I think, be morally chasing this idea of a fairer world and looking at those areas of discipline, really trying to codify imagination for the human race, looking at mentoring, looking at flipping the script, looking at hoodie economics, looking at how we build bridges and looking at how we organise change, at the very least, we will have pursued a noble cause, which is to try and create a set of tools for human beings to be better. And at the very most, then maybe we've created an unbelievable safe space for us to achieve so much of our human potential and build a fairer world. So that's just me going on a rant again. Ella, thanks for dropping in. Marta, thanks for dropping in. It's been great to chat to you. I'm really looking forward to seeing what you're going to do next year with Imagination University.
Thanks for having me.
Pleasure. We're going to drop into the AIM anthem now, which is a tune we create annually with some kids to sort of reflect on the year. And this one, a group of students around the world recorded a song along the lines of, well, the actual literal lines of Sam Cooke's A Change Is Going to Come. So I hope you enjoy it, and we'll catch up with a couple of panelists on the other side. And we're getting towards the end of the show soon as well. So we'll see you on the other side.
It's been too hard living, but I'm afraid to die. 'Cause I don't know what's up there beyond the sky. It's been a long time coming, but I know a change gonna come. Oh, yes it will. I go to the movie and I go downtown. Somebody keep telling me don't hang around. It's been a long time coming, but I know the change gon' come. Oh, yes it will.
Then I go to my brother and I say, brother, brother, help me please. But he winds up knocking me back down my knees.
There's been times that I thought I wouldn't last for long, but now I think I'm able. It's been a long time coming, but I know a change gon' come. Oh, yes it will.
Christiana, thank you for joining us on Imagination TV to talk about the world that we're looking to try and build. I'd love to go to you if you're there to get a little bit of a sense of your story and what's brought you into this orbit.
Oops. Hello, can you hear me?
I've got you, yeah.
Yes, hello. I am Christiana Gardikiotti, and I live in Paralio Astros in Greece. It is a place where a lot of our young people, after they graduate from school,
They leave to go to other places to find work. They leave and they leave behind parents, grandparents. This, to me, was very important to reverse. Along with all other problems that we have, I think my country was suffering very much from the fact that it was losing its young generation. Because I think losing the young generation means losing your hope to the future. Anyway, long story short, I decided, along with climate change, that is very prominent in our days and very dangerous, I was going to do something about educating the young people of the region to give them enough tools in order for them to make the big decision of staying put in their communities. And not only that, to equip them so well that they will come and they will bring others with them. That's how I started. So I founded the Meraki people, and I imagined that in order to do that, we need to change the way we do business. We cannot simply go on and do the same things that we were doing before. It has to stop. In order for us to make better things happen, we needed to go back to nature, observe it, but most of all, respect it. And I reached out all over the world in order to find answers and support. I had the honor of inviting Dr. Pauli Gunter into my village at 2015. He came and he talked to the local people and national people about yeast economy. Oh, that was a term I had never heard. Yeast economy, what's that? Well, a whole new world opened up to me. The world.
I'd love to jump into that, Christiana. I'm going to bring Greg into the conversation as well. And if you have your video there as well to throw on, that'd be awesome, because we'd love to be able to see you as well. And thank you for joining us. And it makes me think, Greg, of the consistent oscillating challenge that we have as a species with concepts of progress and then unlearning, and this pendulum swing that we kind of move through. And sometimes, look, I'm an optimist, so I believe that at its core, we are trying to be good. Sometimes we might be tempted for things which might not support the overall good, but it might support the good of the individual in one's mind. I think at its heart, we do have a drive to be good. And part of what Christiana is talking about, I think, is this is a shaping of our economic modeling to try and not only sustain our resources, but think about what does local economies look like in a sense and balance with global economies, and what do exchange rates look like? What does knowledge look like? What does care look like for that generational gap? And I know that you've spent some time across some generational gaps. So I'd love to get a broad brushstroke sense of the world economy that we look at, and what do you think some of the trends that could be really interesting to track over the next 5 to 10 years as we make our way through this gnarly pandemic and look to redesign what things look like? There you go. There's an easy starter for you, Greg. Off you go.
Thanks, Jack. It's great. You always give me the easy questions. But first of all, I just want to say welcome to Christiana. It is wonderful to see you from all the way across the world, and I think it's a great credit to the AIM team that this is something which actually touches all of our hearts around the world. And Christiana, just partly in answer to Jack's question, if I can borrow some of your wisdom, the way in which you talked about the connection between young people, the future, our environment, government, the economy, history, all of those elements are extremely important, and they actually interact with each other And so to Jack's question, yeah, the future, it's a big question. Maybe just a moment to the past as well. The reason why I'm sitting here is that this is the room where I've had some of the most wonderful experiences of my life over the last 10 years, working with Jack and just trying to reimagine what the future might be like. And Jack, if you don't mind, I'll just tip my computer around so that you can see it.
Oh,
that's a whiteboard that we've spent a lot of years on and a lot of hours on. I just want to say that that's, to me, sort of summarizes it all, which is AIM rocks. So,
well, I think there's been a number of times when we've been in that whiteboard, and we had a great catch up with Katie Montgomery from INSEAD, who's the Dean of Business at INSEAD. And I think I've got that right. And Katie's enrolling in Imagination University. And I said to Katie, how do you Greg, broadly, your background's been in business consulting, supporting ideas to grow. And I would say you're smart. I'd say you're knowledgeable by a number of different measurements. One of the things which I've enjoyed in our dance is I've watched you challenge yourself to unlearn some things when I turned up not having read things by the book and gone, why can't we put A with Z and put these things together? And Katie said, I asked Katie, what do you do? Which I'll ask you both this question. What do you do when an idea presents itself or a person presents itself, which challenges everything that you've ever learned? How do you build a bridge to give a chance for that idea to maybe come to life?
Christiana, do you want to tackle that one first?
Yes, before I do answer, I would like also to thank you very much for inviting me into your world. It's a privilege and an honor to be here. I guess in order for me to answer that is that you have to sit back, contemplate, and somewhere to find the courage and the guts to embrace the new situation. And most of all, to realize that if you are to make a dent or if you are to make a change, it is impossible to do it alone. You got to move from the me and me world that we have been living into the we world, reach out, build networks, yet build networks on new premises, not on the old premises. We cannot go on
Chloe, thank you for dropping into Imagination TV to have a chat to us. How are you?
Yeah, good. I'm sorry if the school bell rings again.
Oh, good.
It's just finished lunchtime.
It's important that school bells ring because then we've got to move on to something else at some point. So that'll be a nice way for us to finish the show. Hey, this is the last segment we've got today. I'd love to just ask you 10 fast questions. Are you ready for them?
Yeah.
Okay. What's a dream?
A goal.
Where does imagination come from?
Being a kid, I'd say.
What do you want to do with Imagination University?
Continue using my imagination to help others.
Why is the color blue blue?
Because it's blue.
What is the sky?
Blue. It's the sky.
How many animals are in the ocean?
Too many to count.
What is a wave?
It could be sound, it could be water, it could be anything, like a wave of happiness.
How does the internet work?
I have no clue. I'm not smart enough for that.
What is the best lesson you've been taught in your life?
To give everything your shot, even if it seems scary, because you'll end up loving it.
12 months from now, what are you hoping you've achieved with Imagination Uni?
I'm hoping that I'm in university and enrolled and living my dream and trying to get out there as an actor.
Awesome. Well, Chloe, thank you for joining us, and thanks to everyone who's logged on today to follow the show. And yeah, it's really cool to see all these different people coming together. So stoked to hopefully provide a space and a network, Chloe, for you to chase some of those dreams. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Oh, good. That wraps us up today, gang, and we're going to go to the university launch film that we've made just to tell the architecture of what we're looking to do with Imagination University. And we'll be back tomorrow at 12 o'clock Australian Eastern Daylight Time. 3 more special episodes for Imagination University as we're a part of history, opening a new university for the world for 5-year-olds to 105-year-olds from any nation, from any background. And it's a free university with the pursuit of higher order thinking for everybody. And then trying to work out how we take these tools of imagination, mentoring, flipping the script, hoodie economics, building bridges, and then organizing change so we can go out and create this fairer world that we're trying to build. And underneath it all, we're hoping to cultivate a social network for good, which is built on some new premises. So that's part of the foundation. Thanks to all our guests today. Fantastic mixture of people, and really excited to see what we can do together moving forward. Enjoy the film, and we'll see you tomorrow.
We know what happened in 2020. So let's imagine 2021.
Let's imagine
what a free and just world looks like. Let's imagine
a university free for all,
with no pay walls to higher order thinking for anyone, anywhere.
Let's imagine
a social network for good.
A bridge for us to come together and redesign the way the world works.
Let's imagine what happens when we tell the kids at the back of the class,
we see you.
There is a generation of